Tuolla Lontoossa Jennin mä kohtasin. Halo Vepi, ho. Hän on neidosten joukossa kaunihin. Halo Vepi, ho. Suukon kirsikka silmät niin...
Well, once again, I welcome you to Gloucester Bookies, another episode in which we will talk about, think about, work with books, writing books, reading books, taking books out of the library. On my, what is this? My left is Raymond Hildenon, who in his lifetime has been a librarian, and will speak on some relevant topics to libraries. And
hello. And thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Again.
It will happen. It will happen. And then Sharon Love Cook, well known as a writer not only on newspapers, but also, and I see you've got a book you can show.
The Granite Cove Mysteries.
Yes.
Okay.
It's midnight in Granite Cove and only the sea clams are open. Granite Cove, come for the chowder, stay for the murder.
Hey.
All right.
All right. Sharon, I think if you, Ray as well, have written so many million words yourselves, as well as I've written some things, I'd like to start by having us discuss for the writers out there, the people who want to be writing, who have started writing and might enjoy learning about how to do it better. I've got a tip, and it's available through the library. I checked online. There's a series that's written by a professor named Brooks Landon. Brooks Landon teaches.
Excuse me, I'm just going to move this a little bit.
He's taught many. I have the floor, but you have the table.
Sorry. Taking an
Anyway,
adjustment.
we're going to. What did I say? The library at no charge. I recommend things that are available at no charge, free at the library.
Because you're a frugal Finn too.
Frugal Finn, right here beside me, vouches for that. Frugal Finn. And Building Great Sentences. If you look up in the Sawyer Free Library, the Noble System, you find Building Great Sentences. It's available in DVDs. It's available in CDs. It's available in the book form that I just showed. It is available. I mean, there's multiple copies. It's, I think, 5 sets of DVDs, 2 or 3 of the CDs, and several of the book. Building Great Sentences. How important are sentences, Sharon? This is a spontaneous and unrehearsed question. How important are sentences?
You have to start, what is that Chinese expression? The longest journey begins with a single step.
Yes.
And so it is with books. You know, you have to start with an opening sentence. I mean, and people say today more than ever, you know, grabbing because our attention span is shrinking to such a point that you've just got to grab them. You know, that opening sentence has to really deliver.
I'm not kidding. I don't know the first sentence of her book, and I'd like to ask you to just say it out loud. Turn to the first page. Give us the first sentence, just as an example of...
This is an impromptu.
It is.
All right.
It's unrehearsed.
Good thing
it's a great one. I think opening sentences...
You've got your answer, but wait till she reads, then I'm going to ask you that.
Okay. I will.
am.
Now...
Go ahead.
Oh, well, all right. I'll just read it. Chapter 1. Iris woke in the middle of the night with the realization that Shannon was not at home. The heavy stillness in the house, coupled with a mother's instinct, convinced her. She reached across the bed and shook Frank. His snoring abruptly stopped. Can I just read just a bit more?
Yes,
what Frank
they're all
says?
all good sentences.
What is it? Frank, Shannon's not home. So? She's been out all night. What do you expect me to do? Can you call the police? Okay, that's...
We've got a good example. They rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. From the first sentence to the second to third, keeps you reading. I'm going to now turn. Ray, you just were ready to say on sentences. Sentences are very important. You're an experienced writer. What?
Well, I was going to say actually something quite different. I often judge, and this is going back to my times as a youngster in the library, I would pick up books and I would read the first sentence and the last sentence. And, some of the most wonderful, phrases that I still recall from Tale of Two Cities or Anna Karenina, where
Yeah.
all happy families
Are
are
alike.
but all families were miserable in their own ways.
Yeah.
And that sort of antithesis, as it was expressed in Henry Gibbons, Gibbons' great work, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, and then, of course, Dickens' great antithetical opening, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
You got the examples going.
right.
And remember, it isn't automatic. It isn't always obvious. I tell you the truth, and this is my true life example. I recently completed another novel.
Oh, my Lord.
It's 100,000 100,000 words.
Oh.
It was 100,000 pages. Yeah, 100,000 words, which boils down to about 400 pages. But when I sent it out, the beautiful thing these days, very different from the 1950s and 60s when you had to put it in postage and stamps and send it in.
And then a return. You had to put that
You had to
return.
return envelope so they would send. You can now on an email basis contact a literary agent and see attached. And either, of course, first the literary agents, and I'm serious because writers out there want to know the process.
Yeah.
First, they want to see a query letter. They don't want to see anything else. And if they're not interested in the query letter, they don't ask you for more. If they are intrigued by your query letter, which is just a one-page little description of the novel that you've written, if they're intrigued enough, they'll ask you to send you either a synopsis or the first 2 or 3 chapters as an attachment. And only after they are satisfied with the synopsis and or the first 2 or 3 chapters will the literary agent say, send me the whole manuscript. Still doesn't make a contract. They're not necessarily going to represent you, but they want to see the whole manuscript. And I've had that good fortune with actually 4 literary agents who asked to see the whole manuscript. And one already responded.
Wonderful.
Wonderful up to a point. The good news and bad news. The bad news is they were not interested in representing me for this book. However, they sent me back this, and it ties in with sentences that we're talking about. It's not automatic. It's a learned art. It's something that you practice. You've been practicing.
Yes.
They sent me back this gem of advice. They said some good things, like the dialogue is good and it's very plausible and interesting idea and so, but also they said, quote, this is the exact verbatim quote, greater drama within the sentences themselves. They were expecting greater, they didn't have it. They found my
that's
sentences.
what they wanted, right?
They found the sentences to be flat or clunky or clumsy. I mean, not every one of them.
Excuse me,
but
wait,
some.
was this a historical novel?
Yeah, it's a historical novel.
Okay.
So probably my failing is somewhat to go into history text mode instead of the
Yes.
novel mode, which is
Yeah.
fiction. You're good with
That's what they
that.
wanted,
But
yeah.
they wanted greater, but remember, it wasn't
Yes.
just greater drama in the novel. This was, and I quote, greater drama within the sentences themselves.
Oh, wow. Well,
within the scope of the sentence. Those 5 or 10 or 15 words that you put together
and
as
that's a
sentence.
lot of sentences you'd have to beef
They
up.
want those to be dramatic.
Yeah.
And there's a rise and fall or a little surprise. What do they call that in Cracker Jacks? There's a prize in every pack. They want to see greater drama within the sentences themselves. And may I say, if I paid more attention to this class, because I did.
Was it in there?
It's in there with that description of what sentences need to be. In fact, the quotation I think was from what's that poet? A rose is a rose. Not
Gertrude Stein?
No, Gertrude Stein.
Yes.
Gertrude Stein. Gertrude Stein said something like, which he quotes, "Why should an arrangement of words not be a pleasure?" Question mark. Wonderful sentence. It happens to be a question, but it's the equivalent of a sentence,
Yes.
one package of words. Why should
sort of like
an
anything
arrangement
goes, you know,
Why
today.
should one of the clearest
Yeah.
things she ever said?
Yeah.
Why should an arrangement of
Right.
words not be a pleasure? And he describes different ways in which you can obtain that pleasure. Basically, I can't imagine I cannot imagine a quicker way for you to hit the road running as a new writer, probably even a writer for many years. If you pick this up, it'll help you so much. As I'm doing rewriting now, you see, rewriting, it'll help you so much in your rewriting to get the sentences right. And I should quote from his introduction because he's pretty reader friendly and it's a good example of his. This is in his introduction. In the DVD, you'll detect that he's a very accommodating and open professor, with the ideal that you hoped you'd have in all of your classes.
Yes.
And he just says it. Just sentences. This is a course that will run through all the ways that sentences get longer and shorter. We will touch upon whatever we can learn about how they work, what they do, how we can think and talk about them in ways that will help our own writing and understanding of prose style. Part of our concern will be stretching our sense of options, all the things a sentence can be or can do. Leave that aside. Your reminiscences of writing this book, and any one that you've written, would, I think, include, gee, I can say that in a different way. And then you even have 2 or 3 different ways in front of you to decide which one do you want to save, and the other 2 get deleted. True? Different ways to say it.
I like to get it down the first time.
You
I was
like if
going
you
to say,
can. It's ideal when it happens.
No,
It's ideal when it happens.
I do, but that, I think that usually comes in the editing. I think when you're editing later, you can look at it, and if it's flat, you see that.
That's where
Yeah.
I say I wanted to apply that if I didn't clearly. It's in the rewriting that I expect
Yes.
to do that dancing, beefing up, I think you could
Yes.
use the word. And yes.
No, I was just going to say that, and maybe this is my problem, that is I want it to jump off the page from the first words.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, that I do agree your prospectus or what you send out the first time has got to be good. And my first experience in that, I spent so much time writing up a delicious letter describing my work about a travels in Spain.
Yeah.
It was so good that they loved it and they wanted to see the manuscript right away.
Oh, yes, that's what's
Excepting I had done such a good job explaining it. It was no longer the book, it was no longer what I had written. I didn't have a manuscript that actually matched what I had described. So that's what I exhausted myself writing that, and I couldn't do any more.
You made it just perfect, is that right? Just the way you
But
would
it was
want
only
it to be?
200 words, I couldn't expand on it.
Like that. These
Go
are
ahead.
stories. No, these are stories that we're sharing as writers, and I'm sure if you attend writers groups in the world, you'll find these kind of stories being swapped as the creative process works that way, differently for each person and then differently for each book. I never write the same book twice in the same method. It's always a different. It was always a learning
Can I
experience.
ask you something,
Yeah.
Wayne? Now, that's a tall order. They want you to take, are they, this literary agent is saying, take all these sentences and beef them all up and just, make them powerhouses?
Well,
that's,
and
what are you going to do?
We're salting and peppering here. Too much salt is, too much.
Yes.
And every sentence can't be ornate.
Oh, I
and
know. Oh,
right?
no.
It just can't.
Then it's
You've
too
gotta-
studied.
Right. You need some short sentences,
Oh, right.
which are just very short. He woke up. By the way, in my 7th grade, I I was a student teacher. I student taught in the 7th grade one time, English, and I told the students, never begin your writing, whether it's a book or an article, waking up.
Waking up, I understand.
And I just...
That's right. That's an old chestnut.
Yeah,
I know. I did
you
it.
just...
I did it. I know
And
that's one of the. I
believe-
found out afterward. I found out that you're not supposed to do that, or with the weather, you know.
Well, and this is
Well, I
this
did
is
it.
the bestseller I'm recommending.
Which one is that now?
It's called Boy's Life. It's a
Oh.
coming of age or Bildungsroman kind of novel. It's the Waltons meet Stephen King kind of book. And it was bestseller.
Yes.
The fellow who wrote remember the Barbra Streisand movie, The Prince of Tides?
Oh yes,
right?
with Robert Redford.
This is the guy who wrote The Prince of Tides. This is the guy he wrote Boy's Life. And how does his book begin?
I like that.
Sharon, how does his book begin?
He's in bed.
Yeah, not in the way it said, Corey, wake up, son, it's time. I let him pull me up from the dark cavern of sleep, and I opened my eyes and looked up at him. He was already dressed in his dark brown uniform and with his name, Tom, written in white letters across his breast pocket. I smelled bacon and eggs,
A little
and
louder,
the
Wayne.
radio was playing softly in the kitchen. Blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, that's a good, well-written beginning.
That's
and
not
I'm
a young
wrong.
adult
So
book,
I've
is
got to
it?
say, I wish I could go back in time and tell
Yeah.
my 7th graders,
I
kids,
know.
it's all right. You can begin your best-selling
Maybe you can track
book
them down.
in
tell them
you can if I've harmed their minds by my advice. So my advice now is you begin anywhere you want, including waking up. The last book I want to recommend before I turn the program over to Raymond will be familiar to some people and others not. The Twilight Zone Companion. This Twilight Zone Companion book, do you remember the Twilight Zone? Friday nights?
My son gave me all the DVDs, the
All
whole
the DVDs,
series.
you got the whole series, you can
It's like 8 or 12 discs. It's fabulous.
This effectively could be the index for your
yeah.
collection. Raymond remembers Friday
Twilight
night,
Zone.
Twilight Zone. Unless somebody was in competition, I think they also had the Friday night fights on. So if somebody in your family watched the Friday night fights, you had to miss the Twilight Zone.
Oh no!
They didn't repeat it in those
You have
days.
to watch the Twilight Zone.
Was it also preceded by the Alfred Hitchcock Hour?
I think it was an hour early. Was the Alfred Hitchcock
was one,
Presents.
too.
But anyway, this one.
I thought that was Sunday night though. Alfred Hitchcock, wasn't it?
This
I don't remember.
Sunday night, 9 o'clock. But anyway,
Oh, Wayne!
yeah, the Twilight,
This is Mr. Trivia. He knows
the
everything.
the Twilight Zone Companion, and you notice here it's the 3rd edition. I bought the 1st edition. It was much smaller. This has been expanded and enlarged. It's got now about 500 black and white photographs, just like it was a black and white production. And lots more information on each episode, a discussion of, it's got an interview of Rod Serling's daughter, lots of things. So if you're a Twilight Zone fan, or want to be, there is the material, you can have it. It's a little bulky, it's I think 500 pages. So it's not exactly a coffee table book, but it's
You have
bigger
to be
than,
something of a fanatic.
a little bit. And
Not that you're a fanatic,
well, I am.
You are?
I am.
Oh,
My-
Well, it's
and
good
my
to be a fanatic about
my-
Twilight Zone. That's all right. That's permissible.
well, the original. You know that fan is a shortened as abbreviation for fanatic. Yeah, true it is. That's
Yes.
what
Why
it's a
didn't I
fanatic.
ever think of that?
So,
Of
yeah,
course it
Fan.
is.
So yes,
fanatic
if you're a fan, you're a fanatic.
Yeah.
This
Well.
this is where we get off on the Twilight Zone.
Now you're supposed to, now we do the, it would be good if the studio could plug in the sound.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Wayne, and thank you for having me back again.
It's a pleasure.
And since I'm going to talk about books, some of them bestsellers, I believe back in the early 80s, the first edition of that book was on the New York Times bestseller list for a year.
The first edition
The first
of what?
edition of the Twilight Zone companion.
Oh,
So
didn't
it has
know
a
that.
distinguished history.
Wow.
So today
So it
I'm
is
going to
well
talk
known.
about a little bit about libraries in honor of this month being National Library Month, and in particular on the North Shore, many libraries honored in particular a whole week which they dedicated to books about libraries, librarianship, authors, and just a little background. I toured several of the libraries in Essex County to see what books they were offering, and I have a couple of them here, and I'll give you a little bit of background to them. But first, I wanted to just say a little bit about the beginnings of libraries on Cape Ann. And in fact, on February 15th, 1830, nearly 100 Gloucester residents met and formed what was called the Gloucester Lyceum. And some of you may remember that that's the name of our Gloucester
Yes.
Library is the Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library. But this lyceum was very crucial because there were a sequence of lectures that were given by several august New England literary lions, including David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Oliver Wendell Holmes, who came to Gloucester, and they charged, I believe, $3 for their lectures. And they were able to raise $250 toward a new library. And by 1850, this library was, the Sawyer Free Library actually came into existence due to a wonderful gift, of course, as most of us know, by Samuel Sawyer, who offered also $100 in addition to what had already been raised in order to develop a library collection. And then once the library collection reached 1,400 volumes, they needed a place to put them. And so Samuel Sawyer bought and gave to the city the Sawyer Free Library building, the front portion, the mansion, if you will, as it exists today, which was augmented in
The so-called Saunders House.
Yes.
Yes.
And that there are also, I just wanted to bring out one other wonderful thing. There's some magnificent artwork which was developed in the 1930s under FDR's program. And they created murals of the working harbor front because, and this is important because libraries are a working part of the community. And briefly, I just wanted to also mention 3 times in the 20th century, there have been very crucial periods and difficult periods in our American history. And in each of those 3 periods, library usage went up by 25 to 30%. The first one was in the Great Depression, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because it's a tie-in with one of the books I am going to talk about. The lions of Fifth Avenue, and of course the lions are those magnificent beasts that are in front of the Fifth Avenue entrance to the public library. So that was in the 30s and the 40s, especially in the beginning of World War II after December 7th. Both FDR and Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia gave weekly talks, and these talks were to sort of serve as a way of keeping up the morale of the citizens. And the mayor, LaGuardia, he gave his talks often that were recorded in the library. And
Ray, somebody's going to think LaGuardia was the mayor of Gloucester.
I said New York, didn't I?
Yes.
Maybe
The Lions. Well, he mentioned the Lions.
sorry.
No,
It's all right. It's all right.
No, we know it's New
so-
York.
So you take a look at that.
Yeah.
What I was going to say about that is that those talks, which were very well received, actually gave names to those lions. He mentioned the words fortitude and patience so many times in his lectures. his radio addresses. Those became the unofficial names of the lions of the public library.
Oh.
So now to get back to the founding of the Rockport Library, I've jumped ahead a little bit, but the Rockport Library also it began to be thought about at just shortly after the Gloucester Library, the Gloucester Lyceum. And the Rockport Town Hall actually opened in the winter of 1869. And in that first year, there were a number of concerts and also lectures. The most important one, if you will, or the one which raised the most money for a new library, was the appearance of Mark Twain. And he raised...
No kidding.
Yes.
In Rockport.
And he raised $250 for the establishment of a library. The library opened in Town Hall, and but it required subscription. It wasn't going to be free at first. 50 cents to join. By 1886, the library was originally only open 1 day a week, but in 1886 it switched to 2 days a week. I don't know what you would do if you read all your books in 1 day. You'd have to wait a week, I guess. But anyways, the collection numbered 2,400 books. And by 1890, the library committee was anxious to move to larger quarters, and they reached out to the library committee in 1893 reached out to Andrew Carnegie, who was willing to donate $10,000 to establish one of the great Carnegie libraries, which Rockport did do. But he gave them $10,000. And the Carnegie Library was built in 1807. And I have a beautiful print.
1907.
What did I say? I'm sorry. 1907. This was a magnificent structure with bicolored rose granite from the local quarries. Wow. And it was a Greek Revival building with interior paneling and a terrazzo floor under a magnificent dome. Alas, this building became too small, and that first library building was recently on sale as a private to go as a private home. It was on the market for $2.9 million. By the 1980s, the Carnegie Library decided that they did need new quarters, and fortunately, a local sculptor and artist and writer, Franz Danghausen, he contributed $1 million for a new building. However, there was an issue with that donation, which is a fascinating story in and of itself. I did a little bit of research, and I found the front page of the Los Angeles Times. Hometown victory for New England Village. Rockport, Mass. Outfoxes the Smithsonian Institute in a dispute over a millionaire's gift. Yes.
How did they outfox
That's a mistake. It's Rockport.
So somebody out in California didn't know Rockport. They called it Rockford, like the Rockford Files.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, it's about Rockport.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But and they were. This really raised quite a stir throughout the country, including a local woman who spent $60 of her own money to raise awareness throughout the country that the Smithsonian was taking $1 million of the Rockport Library's benefactor, the amount of $1 million. But the problem was his wife, in her will, they had both left $10 million to the Smithsonian. And she had died, and so the husband was giving $1 million out of the $10 million to Rockport. And so Smithsonian took them to court because they wanted their full
They wanted all
$10
$10 million. Okay.
Oh my God! And here's
make a
this
long
little local library taking. That was not good PR.
So what was really interesting is the couple spent summers in Rockport, but in the winter they spent in a magnificent duplex apartment at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Boston. So to make a long story short, they did win, and the library was opened and the former on School Street and the former school that is on School Street, and it's now in its present location. So I wanted to turn to a few books Yes.
I have the advantage of knowing people are just you're about to show. These are books that are in libraries,
Yes.
available that you can get, and they're related. They're books related to libraries. Go
Yes,
ahead
they are.
say.
There's one exception to that. There's one book that you will not be able to get. It is because it is so successful. The Personal Librarian, which is by Marie Benedict and Victoria Murray. There are 73 copies in Essex County Libraries. 73 copies. Every one of them for the last month have been unavailable. This book is
Really?
in such demand.
Really?
I had to put a hold on it.
If you're patient, you'll get it. But go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead. Tell us
Well, I
about
thought
the
that was a
book.
fascinating. I thought you
It
would
is
be amused
fascinating.
by that.
No, I've been
Wayne.
waiting
Well,
for.
I am.
I've
I'm
been
sort
waiting
of-
for 3
I'm
months for
dumbfounded.
I've been waiting for 3 months for a copy of The Maid, and I'm number 36, so 35 more people have to work their way through. But anyway, that.
But there are 73
sometimes you have
copies
to.
of this.
Sometimes you have to wait.
Oh, my
So go
Lord.
ahead.
So there are 73 copies of this.
What-
Every one of them.
But why, Ray? I mean, not
It's
that
just.
libraries
It
aren't
is a
fascinating,
bestseller.
but
That's right. And it's just hit a nerve in. It is a story that also is about the personal librarian to a very famous librarian, and who also
what's the setting?
the setting is. I was going to do what Wayne suggested.
do it.
Read the first chapter.
sentence,
The old North Bell tolls the hour, and I realize that I'll be late. I long to break into a sprint, my voluminous skirts lifted, my legs flying along the Princeton University pathways. But just as I gathered the heavy material of my skirt, I hear Mama's voice, Belle, be a lady at all times. So she wasn't able to run through the streets. But she had an appointment with J. Pierpont Morgan, and she became his personal librarian. And
So this is nonfiction?
this is nonfiction.
Yes.
Well, it is a
Well,
historical
historical
fiction. It's her
fiction.
story.
Yes.
But
Based on fact.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Based on a true story.
yes. So she was instrumental in helping J. Pierpont Morgan create one of the most valuable personal libraries of the 20th century. The London Times called his library the most magnificent personal collection in the last 2 centuries. So this is her story, but what makes her story?
How many books did he have?
Well,
I mean,
his
was it
family
vast?
sold them off, but
Yeah.
there were 2,400, which were actually the most important. Well, he
First
considered them to
editions
be.
and all that,
Oh, they were
yes.
wonderful manuscripts. I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Valuable manuscripts,
Yeah.
some of which, in that time, sold for nearly $1 million. So,
Oh, wow.
but the other thing about this personal librarian, which her name was Belle DaCosta Green, she actually was a young woman of Portuguese and black inheritance who passed as white. So this is also part of the passing genre that in the novelistic world in which people, she was a black woman who was forced to hide her true
Ancestry.
yes,
Yeah.
because she
She wouldn't have to hide her Portuguese ancestry in Gloucester, would she?
Oh,
I
no.
don't think so.
no, she
Not
was
at
hiding her
all.
black ancestors.
Yes.
Oh, all
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
One of the
You've got to tell us about these others before we.
well, I'm afraid I'm not going to have time.
Try. Give
You've
it a
already
try.
given Wayne's passed me a note saying that I have 5 minutes to go.
It just amazes
So,
me.
yes.
That I was just going to say that there are 74 copies out. This must be quite a potboiler.
Yes, but in addition, through the Gloucester Library, there are 23 additional copies, all of which are out
Well,
at
through
this time also.
noblenet.org.
Through the Noble Library.
my Lord,
which goes
they're all
beyond,
out
which
too.
extends beyond.
All right.
Essex
yeah,
County.
it goes up to
while
me.
I'm waiting for the personal librarian that I can never
Yes.
get a hold of for 3 months.
That's
you
right,
tell
because-
us about the other ones.
because
that,
Ray
that,
has
There's
it.
a shorter
because
li-
Ray's not returning it.
Ray's
that's
not
No,
why.
I'm going to return it. In order to get it, I had to bend some
Well, now that you
Call
now,
in some favor.
Tell us about the books
now
that
that
are
there are no
available.
fines, I'd like to know what Ray thinks about dropping these fines. You know, I'm of two minds. You know, it's sort of like the no bail.
Well, we can't. Frugal Finns can't be in favor of fines.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But anyways,
On policy.
Or- right.
so one of these books that I was actually going to talk quite a bit about, but will not do so today. It was one of the British Wolfgang History Prize, which is the preeminent prize awarded to great history books. It's called Meetings with Remarkable Manuscripts, 12 Journeys into the Medieval World. And I don't know if with a close-up, if you
So
can
this is
see that.
about a guy bumping into 12 amazing manuscripts from the old days, and he writes up his adventures.
Not quite.
No.
But that's
You
a good
wish.
synopsis. That's a good synopsis. Have you read the book?
No.
So Christopher de Hamel.
He's not going to return it, so you won't be able to.
No, this is mine.
He'll,
This is mine.
right.
It's a fascinating book, which I recommend. It's filled with stories about these 12 manuscripts and how they at one time had disappeared. But he didn't find them. He only located 2 of them. The other 10 had already been found. But he was a curator for the British Museum, and he was able to locate and put 10 of the 12 books on exhibit in London. And they're gorgeous manuscripts, including
what era are
Morgan-
we talking
sorry,
about? I was just saying, is this
medieval manuscripts.
Oh, my
Yes.
Lord! Oh,
And,
wow! Those two.
I just wanted to mention that J. Pierpont Morgan's actually has 2 of them, including a famous one, the Morgan Beatus. And the Morgan Beatus is a magnificent tableau, if you will, that depicts the end of the world as envisioned by medieval scholars. And that is still on display at one of the most magnificent
Coming attractions.
one of the most. let me finish.
No, let Ray finish.
Please.
The end of the world.
I
is
didn't
coming.
interrupt you,
The
Wayne.
end of the
You're
world.
getting,
The
Wayne,
end
you're
is.
getting antsy.
The end is coming. Look.
Now,
The
time
book of
out,
lost
time out.
names.
All right, I'll wrap it up there.
No,
Oh,
you
no,
got
no,
another
No,
one.
your turn.
No.
All right, we'll see if we get. Go ahead,
Oh, well-
Sharon, and then if this time.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's right. Well, I don't really have much. I was just going to mention that my book originally. I'll maybe if I can do a little shameless
Do it.
self-promoting.
Absolutely. Not
I'll just say
shameless
that
at all.
my book originally was called Phantom Baby, and now I called it a AAA, AAA, not a pot boiler. Okay, pot boiler. Adultery, addiction, and abduction. AAA, adultery,
Oh, yes,
addiction,
yes.
and abduction.
Yes.
And I deliver. It delivers.
Was there alien abduction or somebody other?
No, perhaps you'll have to buy it
Okay.
or get
Find
it at
out
the
about it.
library.
All right, but the clams are open.
To find out. Well,
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. That's Granite Cove, where it's
Oh, this
it's a
is-
sleepy fishing village.
Show the
This is-
cover again
this is
because
Harborvale.
you've got a cover.
I can
of
provide
the-
a cover for the
Yeah. Yeah.
as a graphic.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that it was originally Phantom Baby.
Because it looks like the clam flats, is what I'm saying.
Well, let me tell you, the Sisters in Crime, I don't know if you're familiar with Sisters in Crime, SINC. They're all over the U.S., and I belong to the Sisters in Crime New England. But another Sisters in Crime had this national contest, and it was called, I have to remember, Sisters in Crime. Now, this was in 2011. It's called the Judges Top 10 Right Now Contest. And this is Sisters in Crime, a mystery book. You would assume, yes, it's for mystery writers. They wanted the opening, the first pages, the first couple of pages, the opening, which I just sort of read, but the first few pages, the opening scene. And people they send in their openings, and I found out, and I wasn't fooling I wasn't trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, but no one ever said it had to be a mystery. So I thought, well, they never said, you know,
Right,
they
they didn't.
restricted
Wasn't
it to
a
mysteries.
rule.
So I sent Phantom Baby, and I found out that I was one of the judges. My book was one of the judges' top 10.
Oh,
Now these were a lot of entries.
Can I make sure
I
that
don't wanna
the
brag.
judges' top 10
Not-
was picked you?
Yes, they did, for Phantom Baby.
And that was the opening you read about
That was
somebody waking up?
That's right. That was the opening.
Wow,
But it
okay.
was the opening scene.
Yeah,
What
right,
she did.
the whole scene.
So
Okay.
it was like 4 or 5 pages,
Right.
or I don't know how many pages I submitted that.
Okay.
So I didn't want people to get confused and think it was a mystery.
Well,
So,
it's fascinating because
But
you're
I did put it on the back. I put the little gold.
the winner.
The gold
Yes.
seal that they gave me.
Right.
Thank you, Ray.
Anybody-
Thank you, Ray.
Anybody who gets this book is getting, in part, a prize winner from the first few pages immediately. That's good. You hit the ground running. I like that.
Okay, Wayne.
Okay.
And what happened was after it was Martin Brown Publishers in India.
But they changed it from
they're from
Phantom
Indiana.
Baby. They changed the title.
Well, I did. Martin Brown Publishers they're in Indiana, and they had it for 5 years. The contract for 5 years, and when the contract ran out, what I wanted to do was change I wanted to change the title, and because a lot of people thought it was sci-fi. Phantom Baby, again, they
Sounds
thought it may
exactly
be
like-
alien.
yeah, right.
They thought it was an alien.
File in the shelf with the leprechauns. That's right. Okay.
That's right. So I thought, well, I'm going to publish it under my own imprint, which is Neptune Rising Press.
Yes.
Which is my zodiac sign, Neptune Rising, my
All right.
leading sign. What do you call it? My
The zodiac.
yes,
The
it's
sign.
Yeah, that's well. Anyway, that's what I wanted to do, and also I wanted to change the title. I changed it to Talking to the Moon, and I added a little more material because this woman, Iris, well, she was religious at one time, and then growing up Catholic, she got away from it, and she sort of substituted the moon. If she had a problem when she was a little girl, at Sandpiper Beach,
sure.
her family spent
yeah,
their
yeah.
summers at Sandpiper Beach, and she would sit on the steps and talk to the moon. And she would find that sometimes when she had conversations with the moon, good things happened. I mean, things happened in her favor. And and sometimes the moon was just very remote and, cold, and there was nothing, but she always knew that she was sometimes when she was making contact, and things worked out well. So I did that, and the formatters, then I had to have it formatted for an ebook, for the paper, the soft cover version.
Sure.
And the formatters are in Australia, and then I had to get a book designer. Now I wanted a nice picture. I wanted a good picture, and so I looked. I had a book designer, and she said, "Well, give me a photo that you like." Well, I went to Shuttercock. I went to Getty Images. I typed woman alone, walking on beach at night. I can't tell you how many, and you should see the things I saw after a while. Well, naked. People were naked. I didn't want naked women. I just wanted, this is what I wanted. A woman in the moonlight, walking on the beach with the moon.
It's very evocative. cover.
Thank you, Ray.
Yes.
Well, I found it on this, it's called Color Box, and it's a British website, and it's small, very small, where Getty Images has thousands. Women walking on the beach at night, in the moon, under the moon, they only had 5. And I saw this right away, and I thought, thank goodness, because I almost, after a while, when you look at so many things, and you tend to settle for less. You just tend to settle just because you're tired of looking at images day after day. So when I saw this, I knew right away, and I told her the font that I wanted, and the font is called, I cannot remember right now, I'm sorry. I'll remember.
Don't worry.
I'll
Don't worry.
remember.
The main thing
I wanted that. So I
I
told the designer,
on-
and I said, I want my little seal in there too, and a little thumbnail picture, and a few comments.
I honestly want the people viewing to understand, because they include people who want to write and are
Yeah.
far along in their writing. They've already gotten a book. They just don't have a
Yeah.
cover. They don't have it formatted.
Yes.
Those things. So those are part of the process.
That's a
and
huge,
you're
yeah.
describing it in a quick way.
Yeah.
But there's more to it, because you revealed. I take it you've spent really to get this cover together hours. I don't know, days.
I gave it
get-
to, yes, the designer
image.
will give me a mock-up, and then I'll say, like she had my name, Sharon Love Cook, almost bigger than the title.
Oh.
And I said, make the title a little bigger and my name smaller. And so we went back and
good
forth. She's
feedback.
in California. And you know what's funny? I did the illustrations, I did the pictures, the cartoons for my Granite Cove Mysteries.
Yes.
And it's funny, I got to back and forth with the book designer, and I was going to send her a copy, and I said, she gave me her address, and she lives in Granite Bay, California. I thought that
So-
was unusual.
Wayne, you actually could add to the story about covers, because I love the cover of Ed and Joe, and you told me a
Ed
little
and
bit
Joe,
about that.
Edward Hopper.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fabulous.
How did that come about?
Oh, well,
You have a friend in Gloucester who did it. Didn't you?
Yes, Cambridge.
Yeah.
He's
a wonderful
a graphic designer, and he has, he's a science fiction writer as well himself. So he goes through making covers, formatting. He can do things with computers that I didn't begin, because when you're younger, you're able to do it. You grow up with computers. For me, it was
Yeah.
something.
Oh, I know. Oh, Wayne.
It came to me. I said, "What is this?"
It really,
Yeah.
you have to know,
when-
Photoshop and all this. It's very
if
complicated.
anybody out there born in the 1940s, there were
And they're still alive.
World War II, there were no computers. The first
no.
computer was called Univac, and it existed in New York City, and it occupied, I think, a city block.
It took up a whole
There was
block,
no
yes.
such thing as a laptop or all of these access things that we have today. But anyway, you use the computer very happily. Obviously, you've learned.
Oh.
To get to websites that have photos of naked women.
But I
you
don't
wanted-
linger over them, Wayne. I quickly turn.
And you found your way
I quickly
to
dismiss it.
a
looking-
silhouette in the
Yes.
in the moonlight,
Yes.
looking out at the sea. And I'm saying that is a classic, and indeed it says "Talking to the Moon." It's
Yes.
very evocative. I think Raymond used the word as well. Is an example of the interplay between yourself and the artist. The artist didn't say, "Here it is, this is the cover," and then he said, "Oh, I approve that."
And
it
then
was
you have
very
to
much
find,
a
you have to find the
collaborative
font too. A lot of
collaborative
times
process.
people will have a font, but if they have a humorous book and it's like a serious,
Yeah.
like a font.
Oh, what was the name of the sisters? You gave them the Sisters of Crime or something. What was that actual
yes.
name? And I have a reason for asking that.
Sisters in Crime. It's SINC. Sisters in
It
Crime.
reminds me of another a series of sequences of books in San Francisco. They were known as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And I always loved that title. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Are they nuns?
They pretended to be.
Oh, all right. I was going to say that sounds like an order.
But I love
sounds
that,
like
the
a
idea
holy
that
order.
because
Yes.
this group of people were always in need of an indulgence. So hence perpetual indulgence. I love that.
In
I
fiction,
like that. Were they all? Were any of the men? Because
Yes.
men are a lot. Men.
well,
I think there are men with sisters. This
Yeah.
group,
in-
sisters in
in-
crime.
in
I
fic-
believe there are men too.
Yeah.
In fiction, you can see we have fun with this kind of thing. In fiction, Donald Westlake does mysteries.
Oh, yes,
you
of
love
course,
him, I'm
he's
sure.
famous, yes.
Donald Westlake. One of his mysteries, crime novels was about that involved a theft of a treasure from the alleged New York group. the Sisters of Perpetual Misery.
Oh.
I mean, it was invented. It was an invented title. But anyway, I want, before we're gone, we want to know another tip from the Frugal
Oh, yes.
Finn.
Oh, the Frugal Finn, all right.
We realize starving artists, starving authors
didn't bring
need a
whole
way
lot.
to, no, they need a way to get through the day. You give us tips on lifestyle, and it can be small or large, but they can be, go right ahead.
Well, this is just a practical little tip. I remember the last time I was here, I brought those hangers. You know, you put the bear tab openers or
One
the
after
cat
another.
food can openers, and you can actually have several of them hanging there. But if you've ever found yourself, you know, you're staying at a hotel, motel, whatever, and you want to do a little laundry, but you don't want to, there aren't any facilities on the premises. So, you know, you wash a few things, unmentionables. I will not mention, you know, well, underwear you'll wash in the sink. There's no place to hang them. Today you don't find hooks anymore. Years ago, it really is. Remember years ago?
All the time.
The hooks
Yep.
everywhere.
Sure.
We have, at our house, everything was hung on a hook. My mother used to have a whole row of hooks, and we'd hang our coats on them. But today you don't find a place to hang them. So when you do a washing up, and you want to hang them someplace, look in the shower rod, you know, the shower rod in the bathroom, and you'll find this, you know, one of these. These will be
It
hanging
looked
here.
like
This
a
is
question mark.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
it's a shower rung. It's a little shower rung. Just take it off, hang your unmentionables from here, and then put it back on.
Okay,
You know, just hang
okay.
it up. So it's a little hook. It's a little hook that you can hang your hand wash from.
Okay.
But remember to put it back when you go. Just I know, it's always courteous to put it back.
Be a good citizen.
And hey, don't take it with you. Don't,
like that.
leave it for the next person.
right.
So that is something. Also, another thing that I do, and I found this is very helpful. Sometimes you're in a hotel room. The curtains are very heavy. You know, you open them up and they open, but you want to get some more light in if you're writing. You need more light. Get the dental floss. I hope you brought your dental floss with you. Dental floss has many, many uses.
I've only thought of one. So what's the other one?
Well, you wrap the dental floss around those heavy curtains. Just wrap and pull it tight, and it pulls the curtains back.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
I can use that tip.
Yeah, dental floss is very strong. Also, I know, I remember my brother told me this years ago, carry it with you. This is, I'm sure this applies now. If your muffler, Lord forbid your muffler should fall off
Oh my
as you're
God.
driving. You know, some people just drive along and the thing is sparking and making
Yeah.
a racket. Just get out, just get under there. I wouldn't do it myself, but
I had to
men
do it
don't
once.
seem to mind. Oh, all right. Get the dental floss, which is be in your glove compartment, and you can tie it up. Tie that muffler up because dental floss is really strong.
Wow.
But it can pull those curtains back. And
tie up
before
a
you go,
muffler.
you cut it, and then you take the dental floss with you to
Ah.
reuse. So that's just a couple little trips while traveling.
I
Thank
tell you,
you.
if you thought we were one-trick ponies, boy, you know, we got the stuff.
This show, you can learn so much from this show. I mean,
Let
I'm
me
going to.
I haven't told my joke for the show yet.
What
I
is
gotta
that?
tell my joke.
Do we
There's a-
have to hear? Okay.
it's a-
I guess I
there's a-
thought we would escape. I thought,
No,
Ray, we
did-
might get away with it this
This
time.
is a Finn joke.
it's
This
a
is
pun.
Finn joke. No, not even
Oh,
a
no,
pun.
it's not a pun. Okay.
No pun intended. No pun. There's a old Finnish man comes to this country. He's got a big beard, and he goes to the in Wisconsin. He goes to the lumber area, the timber people, and he says, I'd like to work. They say, well, fella, you know, he's a big guy. He's big, but he's old. Said, well, what can you do? And he says, I cut trees. And wow, okay, well, that's what we do. We do cut trees. We want you to do. But you know, are you getting? I mean, how? What? Because they can't believe he cuts trees very well. So they said, tell you what, we'll give you a trial. You come with me, get in my car, my truck. We'll go out into the woods, and you bring your hatchet or your double-edged axe, whatever you have, which he had with him, and we'll see what you can do. So he goes out there. He takes down a tree in minutes. He just boom, boom, in the right places, and and the tree caved over. And then he says, "You want me to bark it and take the branch?" "No, you did terrific, but can you really do that much? Like the next."
You can continue.
"Oh yeah, let me at it." So he goes to another tree, just cuts it down, it falls, and the boss says, "Geez, do it again, one more time." So he does it, and the third tree falls in minutes again. The things that would take 2 men jobs for an hour, he's knocking them down. So he says, "Okay, come back with me." So they go back to the office. He says, "I have to fill out a form, and I have to at least put something down for my superiors, why I hired you.
Yeah.
So where did you work before?" And he's ready to write. And the Finn says, "In the Sahara forest." And he says, "Sahara forest? This is Sahara Desert." And the guy says, "That's what they used to call it. That's what they call it now." That's what they call it now.
If you'll give me 2 minutes
You got 2 minutes.
because there's a book that I know you would like.
Is it a joke? Now Ray's got his joke. He's
Well,
going to say,
it will sound like it, but it's not.
"Oh, can you?"
The Badass Librarians of Timbuktu.
Can we say that on TV?
Oh, my
Okay,
God.
yes.
This is a true
is-
story about manuscripts, a great library in the then in the 15th century in Timbuktu, and it was the repository for 40,000 manuscripts, including lost treatises on math and also early Roman works.
yeah.
And the Badass Librarians, how does that term actually? Because they were under assault from the Al-Qaeda, and the library was going to be destroyed if Timbuktu
What
fell to
year was
Al-Qaeda.
this? What year was this?
Throughout the decade of the 1980s.
Oh,
And
wow.
so this Joshua Hammer relates the story of how there was a great attempt to save these manuscripts, some of which were in the homes of very wealthy residents of Timbuktu. He went around and collected them, and then had to get them out of the country while being chased by
Terrorists.
Al-Qaeda,
Yeah.
and who wanted to destroy those
And
great
him, too.
manuscripts, and perhaps him himself.
Yeah, oh,
a
yeah, along
wonderful
with it.
read, The Badass Librarians of Timbuktu.
You know,
and then
that's
one more thing I want to
that is
squeeze in.
dedication. I think Ray
You
was
got-
that kind of
you got
librarian.
30
The
seconds.
catalog of shipwrecked books. A great novel about a great story and a great librarian by the son of Christopher Columbus. I was gifted this book by Wayne Soini himself.
That's true.
Shipwrecked
And he
books.
picked it up in Harvard, and you said Raymond would
It had-
like this book, and
it
he
had-
was right.
It
Oh,
had your
wow.
name on it, I thought.
Oh,
All right.
So-
Thank you
17
all.
seconds.
You did
Very
it all
good, Ray.
in
You're
a
getting
short
very
time.
efficient with that
Everybody did
time.
it. Thank you all for once
Thank
again.
you.
You've
Thank you,
allowed us into
Wayne.
your living room. Thank you very much. See you next time. This is Gloucester
Here's the
Bookies.
red-
Tuolla Lontoossa Jennin mä kohtasin. Väpi, oho. Hän on neidosten joukossa kaunihin. Väpi, oho. Suukon kirsikka silmät niin mustat kuin yö. Ja ne loisti kuin tuikkiva tähtien työ.